Those of you that watch this show know that I can get fired up. I got fired up this morning. Derek Maltz Sr. got me fired up. I was watching him in front of these clowns in Congress going off on the policies of Joe Biden, and that fits with what we have talked about and had people on this show. It's not necessarily the police or a wall or no wall. It's the policies of the Biden administration that are absolutely crushing us. Former director of special operations of the DEA, 28 years in service to America on border, DEA, and you name it, he's done it. The great Derek Maltz Sr. joins us. Derek, thanks for the time. You went in front of Congress. You did not hold back. You exposed those guys, and I thank you for that. It got me jazzed up today.
Well, thank you, Dan. I'm always jazzed up. You know why? Because there's an army of families around America that are fighting to save other kids' lives as they buried their loved ones, some of them as young as 12 years old. So as you can see behind me, these are some of the families that I support because kids are dying. There's like 9,000 kids a month dying from drugs. The problem, Dan, is America thinks this is the same old drug problem. This is a poisoning of America. China is involved, working with the cartels. And right now, because of the wide open border, the cartels are operating with impunity and are dumping this poisonous substance all over our communities. So we need more leadership out there. And that's why I sent you the story on Logan Webb, because I need athletes like that to step up and talk about this historic crisis. So thank you for having me.
Why are people so afraid to talk about this? I got pissed this morning, 6 times the money going to the Ukraine, then on the border, then on fentanyl. I thought this was supposed to be America first. This is America last, and this is America death.
Right. So, Dan, great question. Part of the reason celebrities, role models, social media influencers, professional athletes are not talking about it is because they don't understand it. This is not about smoking weed. This is not about an opioid pill that kills you. This is about a poisonous substance that comes into the country every day from Mexico. China started this madness with the synthetic drugs, which has been a game changer. But Dan, like right now, if you're paying attention with the xylazine, the animal tranquilizer that's going into the fentanyl all over the country, it's causing necrosis. It's rotten human tissue. But the athletes and the celebrities need to understand this because all Americans are at risk. Like I say, it's not a red or a blue issue, Dan. It's a red, white, and blue issue. All Americans should care. But you're right. This prioritization is whacked out right now. It's twisted. We want to spend, send money to Ukraine. President Biden actually threatened Russia that if they use chemical weapons, there's going to be big consequences. But here's my question to the president. What about the chemical weapons that China and the Mexican cartels are using every day on our kids, and we're doing nothing? We're not even talking about it, Dan.
In your opinion, what needs to be done to secure our border?
Well, it's real simple. Listen to the experts that secured the border under the last administration. So as an example, I'm no border policy expert, but all my friends from Homeland Security, Tom Holman, Mark Morgan, Rodney Scott, Jason Jones, these guys ran border security programs. So you have to, first of all, you have to start up immediately, remain in Mexico. You have to stop the fraudulent asylum claims. Does everyone in America realize that 90% of the asylum claims are false? These people are scamming the system. You also have to end catch and release. Catch and release is the game changer. They know if they get here, they're going to be released, and then they're never going to show up for court, and they're taking over our cities. The problem, Dan, is that the public doesn't even understand there's a big difference between these poor migrants that are trying to get to America for a better life than the gotaways, the 1.7 million gotaways coming from countries around the world, paying the cartels a much more significant amount of money. And we don't even know who they are, where they came from, what they're doing here, what their intent is. But Dan, let me give you a piece of information that a lot of people don't know. The DHS leadership is not publishing the gotaway numbers. The only reason we know about them is our friends on the border that are trying to secure America are leaking that information. So why isn't the president or the Department of Homeland Security telling the public how many gotaways are coming into the country? That's the most important statistic. And every month when CBP produces statistics, this is one that's been omitted. So why?
Well, you mentioned China. The people coming over here, there's two things with it. Yeah, there are some that are traveling a long way, and unfortunately, a lot are dying coming over here. And the second part is, China's putting a lot of people in place here, are they not? I mean, the people that are coming in from China aren't exactly Nobel Prize winning Mother Teresa type people. These are people with an objective here in the United States.
Right. Great point, Dan. So right now, just so you know, so far through June, in what's that, 10 months or 9 months of the fiscal year, there's 14,655 Chinese nationals that have been apprehended by Border Patrol illegally coming into the country. Most of them are military-age men. So the question for anyone in America is, why are they coming here? And then ask yourself, how many Chinese military-age men are in that 1.7 million known got-away number? We don't know how many are here. Now, I will say, in my professional opinion, doing this for many years, my father was in the DEA 30 years. My brother died in Afghanistan fighting for the country. What I'll tell you is this. I believe this is unrestricted warfare led by China using synthetic drugs, poisonous chemicals to destabilize and destroy America. But what they're doing is using the Mexican cartels to do the dirty work. So they're very smart. Once again, we're being outsmarted by our adversaries. And keep in mind, for anyone that thinks that's a conspiracy theory, China wants to destabilize and destroy their adversary. They're going to use all tools in the toolbox to do it. So what better way than use deadly drugs? Mike McCall, Homeland Security former director, said the greatest foreign policy for China is to sell fentanyl in America. Now, think about it, Dan. Like, I can see you got good common sense, right? You don't have to be a border or an immigration or a cartel expert to understand, how is it possible that we're losing 300 kids a day and the White House is silent and they're still sending billions for harm reduction, encouraging drug use? What about destroying the cartels? What about putting pressure on Mexico? What about using the greatest military in the world to help Mexico go after the cartels?
One of the things that I got to ask, because common sense apparently has eluded the Biden administration, why are they okay with this? And silence means they're okay. Kamala Harris is just completely useless as a border czar. Why, in your opinion, is this administration okay with this?
Well, that's the million-dollar question. I mean, the best guess I can make is that they want the votes, and they believe that by bringing all these poor people into America, they're now going to have allegiance to the administration, so they're going to vote. And the Republicans could never win an election between the anonymous voters, the mail-in ballots, and now this new demographic that's coming in from around the world. And by the way, Dan, to make it clear, we're not talking about just poor people from Central America and Mexico. We're talking about 160 countries. So yes, it is an invasion on our cities. Look what's happening in New York City. Total disaster zone. People sleeping on the streets, urinating on the streets like San Francisco. So the answer is, I don't understand. So let me just say this one thing. President Biden in December of 21 made a statement how international drug trafficking is basically an extraordinary, unusual threat to our national security. So the question to the president and to the borders are, so how is leaving a wide open border helping the American public? It's enhancing, it's facilitating the cartel's ability to destroy Americans. And the only ones that are winning are the corrupt government officials in Mexico, the Chinese Communist Party and the criminal networks, and of course the cartels, as they're building $1 billion enterprise. That's the reality.
Again, how is this America first? And you're not even talking about, we're talking about fentanyl. We're talking about kids dying. We're not even talking about human trafficking and all that's going on with human trafficking as we open the border.
Right. So basically, by opening the border, you're giving the cartel another revenue stream. They were already making billions of dollars off the drug trafficking for many years. Now you've expanded it to sex trafficking, human trafficking, and some of the stuff that goes on the border is like now with the wristbands. They're giving wristbands to little babies and to their mothers and fathers because they're indebted. This is modern day slavery in America. When they get to America, they then have to send money back to the cartels. And we're not talking about $50. We're talking about maybe $1,500, $2,500, $5,000, depending on what country. The other thing is, I was recently interviewed on Fox with Laura Ingraham regarding the retail theft operations in America. They're saying people have reported that the cartels are controlling that. Well, what's really happening is these indebted, migrants get to America. So, of course, they got to get involved in crime because they got to pay back the cartels or their families are slaughtered in Mexico or these other countries. So it's a disaster, Dan, every way you look at it. And shame on the average American that has a good family, that believes in rule of law, that believes in God and church and country. This is a crisis that we've never faced in the history of this country. And the biggest reason is China's influence. They're doing all the money laundering now for the cartels. Nobody even talks about that. They're buying land in America, real estate, using the cash that they're picking up all over the country from Chinese kids. These kids are here on visas. They're on there working, picking up cash. The brokers from China are in Mexico City. They work with the cartels, and they're picking up money. So, Dan, just so you know, here's the State of the Union, in my opinion. The Homeland Security alert system has to be put back in place, and we're at severe right now. We're in red.
How did that go out of place? How did that go away?
Well, because everyone got complacent. That's what happens. You put certain policies, procedures, and laws in place, but the bad guys are so complex and so sophisticated. Right now, I can get your head spinning if I explain to you the Chinese money laundering scheme. U.S. law enforcement can't keep up with this. They're using the encrypted apps. They're moving money on their banking apps in China. They're sending consumer goods to Central America, Mexico, South America, and they're selling these goods for such a profit. So the Chinese business people are also making money as our kids in America are dying. Remember, if China's providing all the chemicals and they're providing the money laundering services, that's elevating the cartel's ability to kill Americans. So how is this something that's under the radar? And why are we talking about just fentanyl strips and, harm reduction capabilities and giving out crack pipes? Go to Philadelphia, Kensington, and see what a war zone it is. Go to San Francisco. Go to L.A. Go to Baltimore. These poor Americans are on the streets with these big ulcerations in their skins. They're sitting there dying in the streets. Some of them are veterans, by the way. But yet we're giving billions to Ukraine, right? A war on the other side of the world. And again, I'm not a war expert, so I don't want to be critical of spending on that effort. But prioritization is twisted. That's what I would say.
I can't thank you enough for coming on. Nobody knows more about this or speaks more passionately than you, Derek. And thank you so much. Hope you'll come back.
Absolutely. Thank you for inviting me. I really appreciate it. Have a great day. But please help me with the athletes. Good. We need the athletes to step up. They got to understand the issue.
That's the first thing. Thank you. I will absolutely do that. This is a massive issue. Thank you, Derek. This is a massive issue across our country, and it's killing our kids. And I don't get how anybody thinks this is not going to affect them. I'm sitting in my house here in Indianapolis, and I guarantee you at some point it's going to affect me, whether it's immigration pouring in on our cities. Indianapolis, downtown Indianapolis, is an absolute blank hole. I was going down there for 14 years every day. Every day, Monday through Friday, I would go down there. The BLM riots came. Biden got in, and now we don't have a downtown. We don't have a downtown. We got people doing drugs in the middle of Monument Circle. We got people defecating all over the place. In fact, my boss, Jeff Smolian, in our parking garage right next to Buca de Beppo, he had to put a security system in because people were walking in, taking a dump on his car and others. It's a mess. And it isn't going to stop until we do something like what Derek Maltz said. We get our policies back. We get our government, our leadership in government, certainly not our police, certainly not the people that are defending it. They're doing everything they can. But the whole deal is on the policies, the difference in the policies. One is tough, Donald Trump. One is weak, Joe Biden. Let me ask you another question. On what is Joe Biden strong on? Like, what's he strong on? What's he tough on? I don't understand how. I really don't understand how anybody could vote for this guy. I don't understand how you can be happy paying taxes. I've never not wanted to pay taxes. I've always thought it was my duty, no problem. But now I see $113 billion going to Ukraine and relative peanuts going to our border. Look, I'm going to say this again. Y'all can get mad at somebody wearing a MAGA hat, but make America great again. A slogan started, by the way, by Ronald Reagan, enhanced, I guess, by Bill Clinton, used by Donald Trump, and all of a sudden it's racist. No, we've got to make America great again. We've got to take back our country because this bullshit of America first is exactly that. Complete and utter Bolshevik. I'm just saying. I mean, that's the way I look at it. I mean, I'm just sitting here telling you, hey, look, I don't know what to tell you. But until we get somewhere, somehow, some people that have some common sense. Let's get back to sports. I'm going to get too fired up. I'm going to yell. I'm going to scream. I'm going to just lose my ever-loving mind. Man, it just pisses me off. And I don't know how it doesn't piss off every American. I honestly don't. I don't. Look.